All right, so we're going to set up cyberduck so that we can copy our files that we work on, our HTML, our JavaScript, our CSS, and copy it up to our AWS server. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? That's what this is. We're going to tackle right now. Okay. So first thing first, I'm going to grab my AWS host name. Okay. So just as a recap, that's what this is. That's so we can access this remotely. Okay, and so the way we do that is we go to our running instances, and just as a heads up, if you have multiple running instances, you're going to want to get rid of those, and you can just go right click and go to instance state terminate. I mean, it's totally up to you, but you'll end up getting charged at some point for those. Okay, so just get rid of them if you don't need them, but don't get rid of the one you're using. Okay. All right, so if I go to my running instance here, I go down to public DNS, just like you did when you submitted the URL. We're going to hover over this, and theoretically, I had problems with this before too, where it wasn't showing up. There we go. And then the little copy symbol will appear, and you go copy to clipboard. And now we're just going to minimize that for now. Go into cyberduck, and then don't click on open connection, even though that's the big button there. What we want to do is add a bookmark. So we're going to add using the plus sign down below. Hit the plus sign, and it kind of starts out with reasonable defaults. The most popular, at least historically, way to transfer files was using FTP, file transfer protocol. We're going to use SFTP, which is considerably more secure. Uses that authentication key that you downloaded. All right, so then we need to give it to get here?
Yeah.
The plus.
Oh.
On the bottom of the screen. This plus. Yep. Yeah, don't hit open connection. Do hit the plus, okay? Because you'll have to redo this then if you don't add it to your bookmarks, okay? So we're going to select SFTP here. You can give this a nickname if you want to. You can call it EWGB or whatever you want. Okay, that doesn't matter. That's only for you, and if you only have one server, it's probably not going to be confusing. So then we go to our server here. I'm going to hit Control V, paste that in here. That's our server name. The port is the default TCP/IP port for connecting to SFTP. Okay, so and you'll notice in the URL space. When you uploaded your URL, you had to add http:// to the beginning. That's because there's multiple protocols used on the internet. Most people don't ever see them. Usually they just see HTTP or HTTPS, and actually most of the browsers now are even kind of hiding that, okay? But there are other protocols you can use, and this is an example of one, okay? And we're going to be using SFTP, and so it's kind of filling in a URL for that. Okay. The next field is username. For all of us, it's going to be EC2-user. Almost everything in the whole class that we ever talk about is going to be lowercase, no spaces, except where I try to explicitly call out a space, right? But everything's going to be lowercase. So in this case, it's EC2, lowercase, and then a dash, minus sign, hyphen, whatever you want to call it, and then user. Okay. I shouldn't say whatever you want to call it because it's literally a dash or a hyphen or a minus sign. Most notably, a / is not a dash. I know some people want to say that. A backslash most certainly is not a dash. And a backslash and a / are very different characters, so you're going to hopefully pick up on how to differentiate those. Password is blank because we didn't set up a password, which is good. We don't need one because we're using this private key. So this is where you're going to go and find on your system where you have your key file stored. Okay, so mine's a little bit hidden, so I have to go into, well, actually not, it kind of defaulted to where I'm at. Or not, I'm in the wrong folder. So yeah, so I have to go here, and then here, and then it's in here. So so the key that I set up for my server happens to be called demo key for class 3. So not a super great name, especially since I have so many of them, but that's my key. And then you could be done, but you're going to have to go find on the remote system where your files sit every time. So rather than do that, we're just going to fill that in ahead of time. And that is this. Okay, so it's /, not a backslash. If it's a backslash, it will not work. So a /, which leans to the right, because we read left to right. If it leans to the right, it's /. If it leans back, if it leans to the left, it's a backslash. So /var /www /HTML. Okay, that's the same for everybody. You should just go ahead and put that in there. And that is literally it. Okay, so now we're just gonna hit the red X, and then we have our server set up here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just put this on the right side of my screen, and I'm gonna double click here to connect. Now the first time I go to connect, yours is gonna say, hey, unknown fingerprint. You're gonna want to, because I've done this already, mine isn't saying that, you're gonna wanna say always, click the always checkbox and then hit allow. Okay, but then you should see something very similar or identical to this. Okay,
It says username password for mine.
then you clicked on the open connection instead of the plus. If you did it the way I was doing, it should look exactly the same. Okay, so so it should all look like this if we have a new bookmark. So there is a password field, okay, but there's also a private key field. Does that make sense? You good? Okay, yeah.
Should the encoding also be UTF-8?
Doesn't matter. Leave that alone. Yeah, I mean, yes, it should be UTF-8, but like, don't change anything else. Yeah. Yeah, the defaults are all good for everything else. That's a great question. Yeah. And just as an aside, pretty much everything that you do on the web should be UTF-8, almost always. Okay. All right, so that is that. I'm actually gonna delete this extra bookmark because we don't need it. Okay, so this is where all of our folders are. The index.html that loads when you load up your server is this first index.html. Today we're going to be concerned with the hello world. Okay, so one thing you can do is, just to make sure you're not confused by anything, you can delete the files that are in there. So you can go one by one and hit delete, or you can shift select. So just as a little technique here, if I single click on the first one and then go to the bottom of the list and hold the shift key down and click again, it's going to highlight all of them. That's a very common thing in Windows, so it shouldn't be anything new to you there. But then you can right click and go to delete. If you're on an actual Windows computer, not a Mac pretending to be Windows, I think you can just hit the delete key, but I could be wrong about that. So I'm going to delete those. It says, are you sure? So those are gone now. And if I were to pull up my server and hit refresh here, they're going to be gone. So my project is gone. Okay, I don't have anything there. So we've got to get some files over there. So I'm going to open up my file explorer, and so wherever you have your files on your local system, you're going to need to know where they are. So what I have here is my Hello World folder. Okay, so that all looks fine. So I'm just going to go back up a folder here, and I'm just going to drag this over. I'm going to drag the whole folder over. So if you have if yours is still called Hello World -starter, the easiest thing to do is just rename it to be Hello World, and then whenever you make changes, you can just drag that whole folder over. Okay. And now if I go back to my web browser, my Chrome here, and I hit refresh, it'll load in the new stuff. Okay. Anybody have any questions at all about any of that? So again, anytime you make changes to your code in your text editor, you have to hit save, and then they'll be saved on your local computer, which is good. That's step one. But then, in order to have them be reflected on the server, you have to actually copy them using CyberDuck over to the server. Okay, so they won't. Your project isn't turned in until you copy it over. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording, and if anybody's stuck, I want to unstuck you. So we're going to just take a little time and unstuck everybody, and then I'm going to go through validation. Okay. So.